you got these two products. You just, I'm kind of interested in your experience, Eric, of how does this compare to the last business that you were managing? This has a lot more of a technological component than, just manufacturing, right? So when you're launching a new product like this, a new innovative product where, you're having to get over that barrier of one, getting people to understand the technology, and then two, understand the value proposition. How does that compare to running a traditional business like a manufacturing company?
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good question. So I think for me specifically, one of the biggest differences has been with my previous firm, LK, it being around since 1929, the products that it made were well understood by the market. The need was well understood. And even though we innovated and launched a few new products, it was all kind of just, one deviation over from the core, right? So just kind of, incrementally moving over. With what we're doing at Power Century, technology is really new, right? And although we can tell a customer you have a power issue, your power cost is really high, and they get that, and they're all ears on how to reduce it. The how would we do this? It takes a lot of customer education, and so I think just having to walk into a conversation with the customer and kind of start from scratch on. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is a new technology. I'm willing to have our engineers on the phone to talk about it. Is a different approach than what I had beforehand, which is usually being able to walk into a customer and say, I know you've been buying from us for 10 years, 20 years, right? Here's what we're doing today. So I think in this product, we're not having to prove that there's a need, but we're having to present a whole new way of thinking of the solution.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit different than my past experiences.
Yeah.
Also, with LK, we were the manufacturer ourselves. So like we were building everything start to finish in our facility. Here we have some manufacturing partners, which have been phenomenal to work with. But what that does is in some ways it simplifies some of what we have to focus on, which is really being good at design, really being good at sales and service. And so that middle branch of actually building it, putting the bolts on, cutting the wires, all that has been rightfully outsourced to a partner that specializes in that.
Yeah.
So those are some differences I've seen between the two.
Yeah, manufacturing is a pain in the ass. I'm sure you're kind of like relieved that you don't have to deal with it anymore.
I'll tell you this, inventory day is very different between the two, right?
But on that topic, we deal with a lot of like digital startups and stuff, and it's cool and refreshing to have somebody that has actually some physical hardware. But to like those entrepreneurs that want to do something and you haven't actually manufactured something, would you say that especially, in the early stages, is it much better to kind of find those manufacturing partners to kind of offload that burden so that you can focus on actual sales and marketing, all those kind of things, right?
Yeah. So I would say if you're kind of starting from scratch, then yes, you would want to do that. A firm like LK Industries that had made the capital investments in some of the equipment decades ago that were still the machines being used to make the widgets, the economics were already okay. But if you can imagine starting from scratch, you want to raise capital to be able to do design, to be able to do sales and marketing, not necessarily to buy a machine that's going to cut widgets. And so you outsource that to a partner that can kind of capitalize that machine over a lot of different work. And, they can do that for you cheaper and more efficiently. But that's only like the kind of one point of the value. The other point, and with our manufacturing partner, they've actually added to our product. They've been able to give insights and perspectives and kind of help us think through looking at a design. Hey, did you know there's a different subcomponent you might want to consider here that's higher temperature rated or can do this? So we've actually found that it's much more than a transactional relationship. It's more of a partnership, and we've been really grateful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, if you have manufacturers that are actually looking out for you, they're not just taking your blueprint and pumping it out, but they're saying, hey, look, here's some suggestions to make it better. That makes a lot of sense.
I will say as well, in some of our other strategic partnerships, where it's not manufacturing related, we've had access to their labs, for example, and that capital investment in having to get equipment to test the ERT specifically is huge.
Yeah.
Where Toshiba Motor Test Facility here in Houston had all that equipment available to us, and we were able to actually refine the ERT with them prior to putting it out into the field. Right. So you never really want to be, testing a product for the first time with a client in a live situation. It could be challenging.
That's how it works.
It's happened.
And so to just kind of bring it all back home, I would say to an entrepreneur that's going through this discussion, I would encourage them to focus on what they can do best and what they can do that will give them a competitive advantage. Everything else, you should try to put on to other partners.
Mhm.
Try to let them do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's a lot of resources, out here. You just mentioned Toshiba, Halliburton just announced Halliburton Labs to
Yep.
actually, give a lab atmosphere to people that are coming. They had one company in there that was mixing up chemicals in their garage. It's like, hey, why don't you come do this in an actual lab so you
Yeah,
don't blow
right.
up the neighborhood? So, there's a lot of resources out there, and it's, it's always hard. The thing about digital and software is that it's relatively low entry barriers, right? If you can code or find someone that can code, you can start building product. But, for a product like this, it takes capital, it takes engineering, it takes those resources. So it's good to have you guys on, right after Revo test as well. Actually, it sounds like we're just kind of been getting the whole CSL portfolio
Yeah.
on here. Just keep turning through.
Hey, CSL, if you're listening, I think y'all owe some liquor.
Yeah. Need some ad money from CSL sometime soon. Talking to you, AJ.